your way.
Now that's the way to do things. Our way.
Have it your way. Have it your way at Burger King. It's Burger King.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 84, Once Upon a Planet, and Mud's Passion, from Star Trek, the animated series.
It's time for another fun-filled animated adventure. Welcome to Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Ken Ray.
And I'm John Champion. Today, we get to revisit a couple of old friends. First, it's the seemingly magical Shoreleave planet. Then it's our favorite criminal mastermind, Harry Mudd.
The titles, in case you're wondering what those are and you want to hear somebody with a little bit more inflection say them than the computer, which did a fine job, by the way. Once Upon a Planet, there's inflection, and Mud's Passion.
That was beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Listen later, by the way, for the Harry Mudd action figure commercial. And spoiler alert, there isn't one.
There you go, making things up again. Yeah.
I know. Well, usually in the first minute and a half of the show. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
We've been having a little bit of fun with the Saturday morning thing and sort of hearkening back to our childhoods. Maybe not everybody's, but certainly ours. I'm curious, how many of the toys that we have heard ads for did you have or do you still have? Or, both questions.
More than probably I'm comfortable to admit as an adult.
Okay.
First of all, let me say that Harry Mudd is just a very unfortunate name, no matter what. And I really wish that they would do kind of a retro Mego-style Harry Mudd action figure.
It would just look like a Gorn.
Harry Mudd, I guess it would.
That was the whole Mego thing, right? It's like,
right.
It's Harry Mudd. Well, it's not really. It looks,
just put a Gorn in a white coat. Call him Harry Mudd.
Exactly.
No, so here's the thing. I had a few of them when they were new. Mm-hmm. When those things were first out. I had the Star Trek utility belt. I had some of the models. I had the phaser battle game. Mm-hmm. But then later, when I started collecting stuff, then I kind of repurchased and expanded on that. So the bridge playset, still got that. Still got the box for it and everything. I've got most of the major cast in action figure form. The original Kirk, Spock, Uhura, Scotty, and a Klingon. None of the aliens. Those are really, really hard to get. But yeah, a good amount of that stuff. I didn't have the communicators, but they made this this sort of accessory for that. There was a communication station. It was about the size of like a small laptop, and you would use that as sort of a relay if you had the communicator walkie-talkies. It was very cool. It lit up. It made noise. Okay. But I've got that in the box somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah. How about you?
I know that I had the bridge playset when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. No idea what happened to that, sadly. I think, and I have not seen an ad for this, and I don't know, I might be misremembering, but I think I had like a slide projector, not the planetarium thing that we heard the ad for last week, but I think I had like a slide projector that would let you project, slides on the wall, like film strips in a way, kind of like you had in school, You know
what? I think I remember that. Yeah.
And then I believe I had a handheld game where you sort of drove the Enterprise over stuff.
Right.
But I might just be mashing that up with another game I had. I'm not sure. Anyway, I was just wondering, because some of these I see ads for them, and I'm like, I think either I had that or a friend had that. And then there's other stuff that I'm like, why did they even make that thing, and who bought it? And and then I think, well, John Champion. Speaking of which, there's another question that has one automatic answer. Yeah. That is, the automatic answer is John Champion. That question, of course, who does Star Trek trivia?
Oh! I'm raising my hand.
Okay, I think I see John Champion's hand. Who does Star Trek trivia? John Champion.
That would be me. All right, so we're ready to do trivia.
Sorry, the answer we were looking for is John Champion.
Oh. Sorry. Should I form it into a question? Who is John Champion?
He's the guy who does trivia.
He is me.
Oh, wait,
all right.
You weren't asking me. Sorry, go ahead, please. Allow me to stop stopping you.
I'm going to do trivia a little bit differently this week, Ken.
All right.
We got some response from our listeners. We do listen. We do pay attention to all of our listener response. We read it. And they said, hey, why don't you put some more of the trivia after each episode? And that makes sense, so we don't kind of lose track of the episode. So what I want to do is talk about the shows kind of in general, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Filmation and the state of animation at the time that these shows were on. So first, two things to know. We are talking about Once Upon a Planet and Mud's Passion. So very much like More Tribbles, More Troubles that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, there was an intended sequel to Shore Leave that never got made in the original series. So now we have that sequel, or at least a form of it, with Once Upon a Planet. And Mud's Passion, the same thing. This is a loose adaptation of an intended TOS episode that never got made. So we definitely are kind of making a case here for the shared DNA of the original series and the animated series. Today also we have the final appearance of an original series guest star reprising his role. So previously we had Mark Leonard as Sarek, and we had Stanley Adams as Cyrano Jones, and today we have Roger Carmel as Harry Mudd. Now, let's talk about Filmation a bit. We have talked in Mission Log, Ken, about how you can just see the budget cuts. You can see things like the fingerprints on the animation cell of the Enterprise as it glides by. You get a sense of how they were making this fit into their budget.
I literally saw a hair
right
on one of the cells in one of the episodes today.
Yeah. So, put yourself in the position of the producers of this show. So you had an approval from NBC in late April, early May of 1973 for a show that would start airing in September of that same year. Okay. Now let's think about an animated feature film. So anywhere from 60 to maybe 90 minutes, maybe a little more, just depending on who's making it and what the intention is. It might take a few years, at least a couple of years to make something on that big of a scale. This, we're talking about a few months to crank out multiple episodes and deliver them on time. Now, the shows at the time cost about $75,000 each. That is, if adjusted for inflation today, you're in the neighborhood of about $400,000. And that's the kind of budget that you would see today on, like a half-hour cable comedy, not a network comedy, but something you would find on like FX or, maybe even one of the major cable stations, where you're talking about real-world, single-camera, half-hour comedy. You had in the neighborhood of like 75 artists at a time, creating somewhere in the neighborhood of 7,000 individual cells per show. So what all this adds up to is that it was actually the most expensive animated show of its time. And they actually benefited from the writer's strike that was going on at the same time. So you had this writer's strike. Writers who were members of the union could not write for a regular, like a dramatic or live action TV show, but they were allowed to write one animated show at that time. So it's perfect. You go back, if you're a Gene Roddenberry or DC Fontana, you can go back to the writers who contributed to Star Trek and say, hey, as long as you're not writing right now, come write for us, do one episode, you get paid, and you get something on the air.
Cartoon number 1, Once Upon a Planet.
Act 1. The Enterprise crew beam down to the Shore Leave planet for some good old R&R. McCoy remembers it well. Hey guys, remember that time I imagined I saw the White Rabbit and a little girl who looked like Alice? Haha, those were good times. And remember that time you all thought I was dead because I actually was dead and that I got put back together by an unknown alien technology? Yeah, that was... Remind me why we're here again? Sure enough, a white rabbit being chased by a little blonde girl scampers off, and McCoy is ready to hit us with some exposition. The planet, if you missed shore leave in the original series, uses a technology to recreate whatever someone might think up by way of robots and computers. It's kind of like a holodeck, if I knew what a holodeck was. But I don't, so forget I mentioned it. The party splits up, each free to indulge in the manifestation of their presumably happy thoughts. Uhura is singing by a lake. Sulu is doing something. McCoy pictures an old plantation house, but out of nowhere, the Queen of Hearts appears with her guards demanding the doctor's head. A chase ensues, and McCoy calls for an emergency beam-up. All are whisked back to the Enterprise except for Uhura. Rather, a robot claw reaches out for a communicator, and she is stuck. On the bridge, while everyone is talking about how weird Alice in Wonderland is, it finally dawns on them that Uhura is still missing. Scotty is working on it. Spock can't find her with his scanner either. Kirk takes a new landing party, well, it's the same landing party from before, but without Uhura, to beam back down and find out what's happening. What has happened to Uhura? Well, she's in an underground cavern being antagonized by a computer. It's the computer that runs the planet, and it is talking about the humans who serve their master, the Sky Machine. They are redundant, and they will be eliminated. Paging Dr. Roykirk, paging Dr. Jackson Roykirk. The landing party is trying to put all the pieces together. Uhura is nowhere to be seen, and Kirk thinks that if they could only find the guy who runs this place, the Keeper, they could get a few answers. Since the planet is made out of a dense metal alloy, Scotty is ready to beam down a powerful-looking phaser bore. But now the transporter isn't working. Also, communications stop working. Nothing is working, not even the helm. And the guy with 3 arms is running that. Down on the planet, at least one piece of the mystery is coming together. Sulu finds a monument made of the same metal alloy, and it has an inscription on it that the Keeper has died. Uncle Walt is gone, kids. Act 2. More problems on the Enterprise. Scotty has tried to send a shuttlecraft, but Eric's can't even get the door controls in the hangar bay to work. Down on the planet, Uhura is still being bullied by that computer. It even has a couple of robots grab her hands when it detects that she might be looking for the off switch. This thing knows what she's thinking. Where's Captain Kirk when you need to talk a machine to death? I'll tell you where he is. He's debating with his landing party on where to look for Uhura just as the planet starts producing signs, literally signs, pointing the way. Of course it's a trap, but they've got no better lead to follow. The landing party are led to an area inhabited by some vicious-looking pterodactyls, finding refuge in a cave. Kirk makes a comment about the cat-and-mouse nature of their predicament, when what should appear but a gigantic cat, a really huge man-eating cat, the kind of which has not been seen since the days of Sylvia and Korob. Still too soon. Uhura is doing her best to convince the computer to leave her crewmates alone. Her best isn't good enough. On board the ship, things just got haywire again. Crazy maneuvers. Everybody is bouncing around the bridge. Eric's manages to take things into manual control, and it appears that whatever intelligence is on the planet is learning how to throw the Enterprise around like a rag doll. Act 3. With all this time to kill while hanging out in the cave, Spock comes up with a cunning plan. He remembers how McCoy was mortally wounded and then disappeared for repairs. If only they could recreate an injury to have one of them carried off to the control center. McCoy's got just the thing. A shot of the hypospray, and a moment later, Spock is looking a bit worse for wear. It works. He passes out. Up on the ship, they're still being played with by the planetary computer. The artificial gravity shuts off, leaving everyone to float around. Sure, sounds like fun, but it's a lot harder to do your job that way. On the surface, a few minutes pass and a hovering robot shows up to collect Spock's limp body, and the rest of the landing party chase after him. Only Kirk makes it with Spock, while McCoy and Sulu are left to contend with a two-headed fire-breathing dragon. When Spock comes to, he and Kirk make their way to the main control room to find the computer in charge. You know what the problem is? It thinks that it has spent its entire life in servitude of humans who are enslaved by other machines. It wants to branch out, find other machines and roam the galaxy, maybe enslaving other people. Things everywhere else are getting rougher. McCoy and Sulu are trapped. The Enterprise crew are mostly buckled in to keep from floating around, but there's a new computer on board being assembled by other computers. There's only one thing to do in a situation like this: break out the Kirk word jujitsu and talk this computer down. You've got it all wrong, see? People and machines live in harmony. Why don't you stop attacking us and we'll show you? Also, you are acting illogically against your programming, so you should blow yourself up right now. Well, not that last part. This is a kid's show, but I bet Kirk was thinking it. The computer relents, and all the functions of the Enterprise are returned to normal. Shore leave is back on, and the computer will happily serve these humans. The end.
It makes absolutely no sense to me that they stay on the planet.
Why? Just because it tried to kill them?
Just because it tried to kill them last time they were there, too. I mean, I know there was the issue of, okay, well, we didn't know what the controls were, so we have to think happy thoughts, and then we're fine. But then they come back, and we're like, oh, boy, are we tired. Time for some shore leave. And then, it turns out the planet wants to kill them. And then the planet's like, oh, did I say kill? I meant thrill. You stay and have a good time. And Kirk's like, thank goodness, because seriously, we are tired and we do want to have some fun. It makes no sense. I mean, of all of the planets that they've put cones around.
Yeah.
This one.
Talos, Shore Leave Planet. I even go back to yesteryear when they go back to the Guardian. And again, if I'm Kirk, I just want to stay away. You say it's just an expedition to observe history. No, you saw what happened last time.
Yeah, you'd think. Yeah. Anyway, it makes no sense to me that they stayed, but good for them. I'm sure they had a great time. Maybe we'll hear about it, years down the road.
Again, right. A couple of additional bits of trivia for this episode. Chuck Minville and Len Jansen, who wrote this episode, they were regulars for Filmation, so you see their names show up on a lot of their other shows. And a lot of voice work here by James Doohan. Scotty, of course, and he is talking to Eric's, so there's Doohan talking to himself. Plus, he's the computer, the evil, misprogrammed, misguided computer on the planet. He actually does 5 voices because then you have to include the White Rabbit and Gabler, who is down there trying to fix the gravity controls on the Enterprise.
Do me a favor. We're going to put a pin in the 3 things that you just called the computer.
We are? Okay.
Evil, misprogrammed, and misguided.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you remember those? Because I won't.
I'll try to.
All right, good. Because we have to come back to that.
Okay. How'd you feel about the cat, Ken? The most universally feared creature.
Whatever. It was actually more believable than the one with Sylvia and Korob.
It totally was from Cat's Paw.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe because we're already looking at something that looks cartoonish. And so then the cartoon cat comes and you're like, oh, that's scary for those cartoon people. As opposed to, with Sylvia and Korob, you were like, oh, look, they took a close-up of a cat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a little bit creepier.
I guess that computer had watched Cat's Paw.
Maybe.
And maybe that's what ticked it off.
Maybe. Do you think Spock just walks around constantly afraid he's going to see a cat?
He might.
Well, actually, no, I take it back. It was Kirk this time that said he was playing cat and mouse.
Cat and mouse, yeah.
That was Kirk's fault, not Spock's.
Speaking of cats, Ken, I don't know if you got it, but Lieutenant Mress, she's a cat, get it? Because she purrs constantly.
I get that she's a cat, yeah.
Because she purrs.
Is that why?
Constantly.
see, I got it because like the lion mane and the ears and the tail, but you're saying it was the purring that gave it away for you.
Yeah, well, no, but I mean, I think it drives it home. It's like if there was any doubt,
it does a little bit.
Any doubt,
it would have been better actually. Would have been like if she'd been like, meow meow, incoming message, meow.
She speaks English with a cat accent. I wonder if Majel would just bust that out at parties. It was quite a talent.
There's somebody we could ask.
There is.
Can I just say really quickly, there's almost like this accidental hell that the Enterprise principals might have ended up in this episode. So here's the thing. The planet wants to kill the people from the Enterprise, right? Mm-hmm. But the planet also has to heal anybody that falls ill.
Yeah.
This is potentially Promethean, right?
Yeah.
Prometheus, for people who don't remember, because it's been a few years, steals fire and gives it to man, right? Mm-hmm. And the punishment of Prometheus as a consequence for, stealing fire from the gods, Zeus sentences Prometheus to eternal torment for what he did. He ties him to a rock where each day an eagle, which is, like Zeus's totem or something, an eagle comes and eats Prometheus's liver while Prometheus is alive. Zeus does not screw around. I mean, well, he does, but he doesn't mess around. I'll put it that way. And so then what happens is, it ate his liver, and then that night his liver heals so that what can happen the next day, John?
The giant eagle comes back and eats his liver again.
Eats his liver again, yes, that's exactly right. And it's just
never-ending, like a Mobius strip of liver-eating eagles.
Right. Yeah. So let's apply this to this episode of Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to kill Spock because the planet wants to kill Spock, but we want to save Spock and get inside the planet, right? So then Spock's just about dead. The planet comes and gets him and heals him. And where was I? Oh, that's right. I was going to kill Spock. and then, of course, then Spock will be dead, so I'll have to heal him. And this really could be purgatory.
Yeah.
This could be limbo. This could be hell. Or, this could be Prometheus 2. Look for it in theaters in 2016.
Right. There's something about this plan that I just really, if I were there, I'd raise my hand and say, okay, everything is trying to kill us. Right. We don't know why that. We haven't seen the Keeper because he's dead.
Right.
And we're just assuming that part of the programming that heals you is still intact, even though Uhura, in her conversation earlier, unbeknownst to them, the computer has said, I'm going to deactivate them.
Right.
Which, in Doctor Who talk would either be delete if you're a Cyberman or exterminate if you're a Dalek. This does not end well for humans either way.
Well, and she also teaches him a new word, murder.
You're right.
And he's like, murder? Does that mean deactivate? Cool. Yeah, I'm going to murder him then. Yeah.
Use that. Add that to the thesaurus.
That's what I'm going to do.
And this is a tough sell because, in the original Shore Leave discussion that we had, I talked about my love for theme parks and the idea of like theme park architecture and immersive environments and all this stuff. And, it's kind of hard. Like if somebody's never been to Disneyland and you go like, no, really, it's fun. You should come with me. And you do these things and you ride these rides and it's just sort of beautiful to look at, blah, blah, blah. And then you get down there and they have a bad time because there's also crowds and it's also expensive. The Shore Leave Planet is a hard sell because you say, no, you get to go there and you imagine whatever you want to imagine and it happens. And also you constantly get killed and reassembled. But don't worry about that part.
Right. Yeah. You may get wet on this ride. Also, you may get beheaded. But don't worry. You'll dry off and we'll put your head back on.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing that, again, though, no signs. And again, too, I still say someday somebody is going to show up with a bill for this place.
Oh, yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Okay, so you had a love, I think, for the Shore Leave, for the original series. I can't remember. I know you like the idea of the amusement parks, though.
Yeah, very much so.
Did it not feel, I think you even mentioned it earlier when you were talking that it's got some of the same DNA. Did it not feel too much like it was trying too hard to say, look, we're Star Trek. Look at this. We're on the same planet. We got the same gags. Of course, Sulu didn't find a gun, but it was, a cartoon that would be on Saturday morning. So maybe they wouldn't have found a gun for that reason. But I mean, there's a lot of same old going on here. Oh, there is a dead guy, though. I mean, that is kind of rough for a Saturday morning, I suppose.
Yeah.
Your grandpa's dead. But I mean, did it feel like it was trying too hard to say, no, really, it's us?
Yeah. I think that's the hard part about this episode because I like the original and I was like, oh, cool, they're back on that planet. We might learn more about how it works. But then it just becomes situational.
Yeah.
So they might as well be, they could be anywhere and it's just a computer that is, what did I say, evil, misguided, misprogrammed?
Yeah, which we have to come back to. Thank you for remembering those.
We will. It just comes down to the situational moment of, well, we have to get out from under this computer. So I'm disappointed that we didn't get to take the themes of the original and make it more, bigger, better, more exciting. But then you come back to the idea that it is a 24-minute children's program.
Yeah.
There's some disappointment there. I was glad to see them go there, and I was glad to see it as part of Star Trek. But it's unfortunate.
It is interesting that we talked all through the original series about how we're never going to see this planet again. And that was, every planet we came to, the second Earth that Miri inhabits.
Right.
Any place with like some of the god people, that were like gods, but were people or, whatever they were. It is neat to see that this planet does still exist in the Star Trek universe, and that we're revisiting it.
But you still go back to this problem I had with the original, which is if you don't put the safety pylons around it and the police tape to keep people out, this is some incredible technology.
Yes.
That if it fell into the wrong hands, this would really be a problem. Now, we don't have to worry about the wrong hands in this one because the computer itself is the wrong hands. But anybody could show up and use this replicator / medical / thought reading. I mean, there's a lot going on here.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you're assuming a lot. I mean, it took the Enterprise forever to even find out about that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So how are you thinking that somebody's going to come and take it over?
Well, remember, Ken, that the Federation computers contain the sum of all knowledge.
Well,
all it takes is one species that can look into that computer and go, that sounds like fun. Let's go there.
All right. Speaking of computers.
Yeah.
Come on. What's your problem? I mean, well, no, I don't want to say what's your problem because that sounds combative, and I know I'm going to be, but
you would never do that.
I don't want to sound like it though.
Yeah.
I have a problem with the way this computer was treated, honestly, by the Enterprise, which may sound weird because I know the computer was trying to kill the Enterprise and the people coming from the Enterprise, and certainly I would say that it was misguided in that it seems to think that machines run everything, although that doesn't really explain. Well, tell me what your issue was with this computer.
Well, here's the thing, Ken. I mean, I have a laptop that I use like Eric's uses a third arm. Okay. I use it constantly. It's important to me, and I would be a little lost without it. If that laptop that I have a really good relationship with decided one day that it would try to kill me or delete me or whatever the term may be, I would immediately assume that there is a severe problem with its programming and it needed to have its software wiped out and reinstalled. I would not, and I think I know where you're going with this, and I think it's an interesting idea that the computer has somehow gone from a thing that is programmed to do one thing, which is read minds and create the avatar of the thing that the mind has imagined.
Right.
Okay. I think what you're thinking is that it has now reached a kind of consciousness.
Right.
Is that? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Which I think is interesting, but it is also a machine that has grown beyond its boundaries in a dangerous way. And if any computer needs to be talked down, I think it's this computer. Now, is there a possibility for another ending here? I was glad to see that Kirk just sort of volunteered Spock for the job. He's like, Spock doesn't do anything on shore leave. You guys stay here and talk just as long as you want.
Please, what would Spock rather do than talk to an intelligent computer?
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Huff some spores maybe, but that's it.
Right. So I thought that was an interesting idea that there will be a further conversation, and I was kind of interested in what that conversation would be because that computer has a lot to learn. But if there is something in this programming that is wrong, it's sort of like we need to go back to the 3 laws of robotics here. And yes, this computer needs to be reprogrammed so it doesn't do something like kill people.
Okay.
That's what it comes down to for me.
See, here's what's interesting to me. I think you're getting caught in the part where it's a computer. And let's not make it a machine. Let's just make it an intelligence. Because the problem that I had with this episode was not the fact that Kirk mistreated a computer or that the Enterprise crew mistreated a computer. It was that they came across someone And you can say, well, it's not someone because it's a machine, but it is an intelligence, and it seems to be it seems to have a bit of awareness, right? They came across someone who said, you know what? I'm not happy with what I'm doing. I want to do something else. And all the crew of the Enterprise said, why? What you're doing is awesome. So just be happy. I mean, so imagine if somebody had said that to Kirk at any point in his life. If Kirk said, you know what? I don't want to be on Earth anymore. I want to be a starship captain. Oh, but honey, you're so good here on Earth. So why don't you just stay here? That was honestly the problem that I had with it. There was this thing that wanted to be more. And because it did not sit well with what the Enterprise wanted.
Because they would have been killed.
Not necessarily. Okay, so there's always more than one solution, right? It's like the whole thing about, okay, so give them the Galileo. You want to go out and see the universe? Dude, here you go. Because we'll find out in the next episode, they've got like 9 shuttles.
They do.
In the shuttle bay. I mean, Mudd is going to take his time figuring out which one of these rides he wants to take, right?
Right.
So, I mean, they could actually they could, set it straight and say, look, you're not going to take over anything. Machines don't run everything. I felt kind of bad, actually, because the computer wants to go out and meet his brother computers. He's going to be really disappointed when he finds out they're just label makers, not actual computers. But okay. Right. Give him a way to get off the planet, because that's what he wants. Now, there are a lot of problems with this computer, and his homicidal rage, personally, to me, doesn't seem to be the biggest one. The fact that he can't think non-linearly kind of bothers me. He's talking to Uhura, and she's like, well, can you explain this to me? He's like, no, I can't. Got too much stuff to do. Right, okay. Right. Dual processing cores might not be a bad idea for a computer that's going to run a planet. Right. He's not thinking in terms of, well, if I can create all of these things for them, then why can't I create all of these things for me? I mean, it's sort of like a
spaceship. Yeah.
Like a spaceship. Almost like, well, I mean, a spaceship, or even just, his own recreation of a spaceship, almost like, a ship in a bottle, maybe, or something like that, where he can explore the universe without actually having to explore the universe. The problem that I had with this episode was, here's somebody who wants to do something more. No. You're fine at the level that you're at right now. Don't strive. That's for others. That was honestly the biggest problem that I had with this episode. Well, that and the fact that we're going, hey, look, it's still this.
Yeah, right. I get it, but again, this was a machine that was made by the keeper, the other keepers of this planet for a purpose. And again, if the machines that I have that are there for a purpose decide that those purposes aren't good enough anymore, that the new purpose is going to be to kill me in my sleep, then that machine is going back to the Genius Bar and get wiped out.
Except we're talking about two different things. I mean, you honestly, when you say that, and again, since we're talking about a cartoon, then we have to admit that we're not talking about a computer. And if we're not talking about a computer and we're just talking about a character or an intelligence, the problem that I have is you're almost subscribing to a caste system at that point. This thing was made for this one thing. This thing has one place in society. And how dare it think that it can do something more? How dare it think it can do something better? How dare it think it can sit here as opposed to sitting there? Or how dare it think it can apply for this job when really it's only good for this job?
But it's a machine programmed for that thing.
It's an allegory. You say it's a machine programmed for that thing, but all of Star Trek is an allegory, and that's the problem that I'm having, or all of Star Trek is a parable. I don't know which. Yeah. But that's the problem that I'm having. They are coming across something that has almost infinite talent, that has an incredible amount of intelligence, and it wants to do more than it can do currently. And what they do is they talk it into thinking that, no, it doesn't want to do that.
No, I know, and I do meet you halfway to the extent that I understand exactly where you're coming from, because I thought of that as kind of the flip side of this argument. And yes, like I said, there's another thing to explore here, which is the conversation the computer and Spock has, and that would take a really great writer to explore that. But I kind of want to know what happened next. And then I agree, how do you come back to this and say, well, you want more knowledge, you want more, maybe here are the options that you could do this. And at the same time, we have to make sure you don't kill. Right. Because you just seemed hell-bent on killing. And what if something else that happens to you in your exploration, like Nomad, you just figure out one day, you know what, all these carbon-based life forms are imperfect. The best thing to do with them is to wipe them out. It could learn that lesson again potentially.
Yeah, the only problem I have with what you're saying is when they decide that it's safe, Kirk calls up to Lieutenant Kitty Cat and says, "Hey, send everybody down. It's totally safe now. We're not actually worried about this thing killing everybody. We're worried about not being able to get from this thing what we want to get from this thing." And that's the part that kind of made me shudder.
Well, Ken, you and I may disagree on these elements here, but are there lessons that you picked up from the episode?
None that I liked.
Okay.
I mean, that was seriously it. That was seriously what I got off this episode was don't strive.
Oh, wow.
Don't shoot above your station. And I don't believe that was actually the lesson that they were trying to impart, but that was all I could see when this thing's like, I want to go out. And they're like, no, stay in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Uhura tried to put kind of a bow on it at the end and say, look, and if you use free will, then serving others can be a noble and worthy goal. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I'll go along with that. The free will thing is the critical part of that.
Right. I can't wait to tell you how much you want to get me drinks next time we're in Vegas.
Oh, I'm sure.
As long as it's your will to do that, John, I think you'll have a great time.
Your Jedi mind tricks don't work on me. Kirk tells the computer, there's no ruler of the galaxy, there's us, and we try to work together with each other and with our machines. Okay, not bad. So I'll leave it at that.
Your chores can wait until later. First, there's more mission log. Right after this.
Let's contact Steve. Check.
It's the Star Trek Command Communications Console for use with a Star Trek communicator sold separately. Each uses one 9-volt battery, not included. The Command Communications Console has a multicolor phaser light screen. You can broadcast up to 1,300 feet, and there's a Morse code key that you can buzz out loud or broadcast to the communicators. The Star Trek Command Communications Console. Communicators sold separately in pairs. From Mego.
And now, back to mission log. Cartoon number 2. Mud's Passion.
Act 1. The Enterprise is headed to the planet Motherlode to apprehend the scoundrel and scourge of the Enterprise, Harcourt Fenton Mudd, for fraud, illegal drug manufacturing, and swindling. When Kirk and Spock beam down, they find Mudd pitching a bunch of laborers on a love potion. He even shows how well it works on a gorgeous blonde, which is revealed by Spock to be a Regillian hypnoid, sort of a hypnotic lizard with fur. The love potion's a ripoff. Flim flam. It's snake oil, see? Mudd, who had been resisting going along quietly with Kirk and Spock, has a change of heart and gladly surrenders to the Enterprise officers. It's either that or be killed by the miners he'd been trying to swindle. In sickbay aboard the Enterprise, Nurse Chapel says Mudd will be fine despite some roughing up by the miners of Motherlode. That's my band name, not yours. Mudd's been busy since last they saw him. He stole a spaceship to get off of planet Mudd, or whatever the robot planet was called. He went to another, more peaceful planet, the inhabitants of which thought they'd bought Starfleet Academy from him. That profit he turned into a trip to Sirius 9, where he found and procured the love potion he'd been trying to sell to the miners of Motherlode. My band, not yours. Mudd says the potion actually works, but Kirk won't hear it. He tells Spock to prepare Mudd's arrest report. Spock tells Chapel to do a full medical workup on Mudd. Chapel compliments Spock in a huge way. And here's another carryover from the original series to the animated series. Chapel's got it bad for Spock, and Mudd sees it. He starts sweet-talking Chapel. He would like to thank her for just her being her by offering her one of the love potions. Just put some on, touch Spock, and boom, he will be in love with you. Chapel doesn't believe Mudd, and yet she can't help giving it a go after Harry appeals to her as a woman in love and a scientist capable of running tests and drawing her own conclusions. Chapel lowers the force field separating her and Mudd to take the potion. Act 2. The Enterprise has achieved parking orbit around a Class M planet in a binary star system. Those are rare enough that it seemed worth checking out. No evidence of intelligent life, though. Back in the brig, Chapel says she'll run some lab tests on the potion, but Mudd says that'll ruin it. Just put it on and touch Spock. Chapel applies the potion and gets woozy. Mudd steadies her, though, and secretly takes her phaser in the process. Feeling better, Chapel puts Mudd back in lockup and then goes to find Spock. No sooner is she gone, though, than Mudd uses his newly pilfered phaser to free himself. He's also stolen her Enterprise ID, which he counterfeits to look like an ID for him, though his name is still Christine Chapel. The moment of truth. Chapel goes to give Spock Mudd's medical record and clumsily falls into his lap. So there's the touching. And there's no change in Spock. Surprise, love potion number Mudd doesn't work. Chapel goes to give Mudd a piece of her mind, but he is gone. Not in the brig. Now she notices her phaser missing. Mudd, meanwhile, is in the shuttle bay. Cut back to Spock, finishing the arrest report, including the part where Nurse Christine Chapel did the medical summary. Nurse Chapel's sweet summary. Dear, lovely Christine. Surprise, love potion number Mudd does work. Spock senses something's up with him, though of course he doesn't know that he's been dosed. He goes to the bridge to report that something's wrong. He's feeling strange emotions. Chapel, meanwhile, is caught up to Mudd. She knocks him over, gets her phaser back, then gives him what for tricking her with the potion. Hey, he says, you know what Vulcans are like. Maybe it takes a minute, or maybe you need more potion crystals. He produces more, but Chapel won't hear it. Mudd drops the crystals and runs from Chapel. She sounds red alert, but things are about to get much worse. The dropped and shattered love potion crystals have been sucked into the Enterprise air supply. It will definitely not be all out of love. Somehow Mudd gets the drop on Chapel. He wrests the phaser from her, apologizes, and says that he will need her as a temporary hostage. On the bridge, Lieutenant Eriks puts the shuttle bay, source of the red alert, on screen. There, everyone sees Mudd take off with his hostage, Christine Chapel, which freaks Spock out. He says he's in love with her, that she's his, which freaks everyone else out. Mudd and Chapel are headed planetside. Spock insists on going to get them, and Kirk says he'll come too. Everybody's talking about how weird the whole Spock in love thing is, though it probably won't be long before stuff gets even more strange. Love is in the air. Act 3. Kirk and Spock are getting ready to go after Mudd and Chapel. McCoy has to tell them something, though. He found some of Mudd's shattered love potion crystals against an air vent. Kirk says, good thing they don't work, but Bones thinks maybe they do. The crew's getting a little strange, plus, have you met Rudolph Valentino Spock? Maress, the Catwoman, starts hitting on Scotty, who doesn't seem to be complaining. Oh, and by the way, they've got coordinates for Mudd and Chapel on the planet. Down on the planet, Mudd's got a plan. He's going to leave Christine here and go make his fortune. On this desert planet. It's an odd plan. He plans to make his fortune on a peaceful Class M planet that has no intelligent life, but is home, it turns out, to some gigantic rock lizard monsters. The rock lizard things go to attack Mudd and Chapel as Kirk and Spock arrive. Kirk calls up to the Enterprise for an emergency beam-up, but they don't hear the call. Too busy dancing to loud music in the transporter room. Also, McCoy's putting the moves on a red skirt. Planetside, Kirk and Spock start getting testy. Then they realize that they are reacting to the drug, the love potion. This is the first indication Mudd's had that the potion actually works. The rock lizard things move in for another attack. Don't worry, though. Spock beats rock and lizard. I wish that were true. Actually, Kirk gets Mudd to give him the last 2 love potion crystals he has, breaks them, and throws them at the creatures. They start fighting each other. On board the Enterprise, the crew is recovering, as if from a hangover. They have headaches and a sudden antipathy for one another. They finally hear the landing party's call for help, though, and beam Kirk, Spock, Chapel, and Mudd back aboard. Turns out the antipathy felt by the crew is a side effect of the love potion, and Chapel is now feeling that for Spock. Harry, meanwhile, has made a full confession of his most recent crimes. He's off to rehabilitation therapy. Again. The end.
Wow, you worked in All Out of Love.
I would be so lost without that reference, dude.
Well played.
Thank you very much. And Love was also in the air. I was a fan of that too.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. This episode was written by Stephen Kandel, who wrote the original Mud episodes, and of course has had a very wide and varied career in TV. Basically, if you watched TV at all in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you saw something written by Stephen Kandel.
But
not to be confused with Stephen J. Cannell, different guy.
But they didn't all include Harry Mudd, right?
They didn't.
Only his Star Trek. He only has 3 Star Trek titles that I could find.
And it's
they were all Mudd something. Yeah, it's like the Fletch books, but different.
Yeah, right. And it just made me come back to the idea, just asking myself, did we really need more Harry Mudd? Was he trying to atone for the Harry Mudd mistakes the first time around? And more of Harry Mudd with magic pills? Wow.
It is weird that we get 2 such incredibly self-referential, I guess, might be the best way to put it, episodes in a row. Yeah. We get Once Upon a Planet, which is, pointing constantly back to shore leave. Right. And then, of course, we get the return of Harcourt Fenton Mudd. Although, if memory serves, you had said that I Mudd was sort of a response to fan adoration for Mudd, right?
Yeah.
All right, so putting him in the cartoon actually makes sense. It's kind of like when the Globetrotters were on every cartoon.
Sure, exactly like that.
It's a bit like that, Hey, here's a star we know, or here's a character that we know. And honestly, as much as I'm not a huge fan of Harry Mudd, a much more charismatic character than Cyrano Jones.
Oh, yeah. True. I mean, I like the idea that we went back to ideas from other shows. So you pointed out like the Chapel Spock relationship.
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of cool that was picked up on, and we found a little something else to do with it. To me, it felt like Star Trek being derivative of Star Trek without really adding too much that was new. And I wanted to like this, and I wanted to like Harry Mudd, instead of just thinking of him as a caricature who has outlived his usefulness. And by the end of it, I was like, oh man, we just got more Harry Mudd.
He was a caricature who had outlived his usefulness, though. In
by the second episode.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, as much as you might like Roger Carmel. As much as you might like him, and as much as you might like sort of the ribbing and the poking and I can't wait to get the email saying you're taking this cartoon too seriously because we're analyzing a cartoon.
Right.
But this was even less fun than I Mudd, which is kind of sad.
I was kind of disappointed though that Chapel would come anywhere near that potion that Mudd is selling, and that she wouldn't put herself into quarantine right after she was hit by it. Like, I understand that we have to drive the story along, but I expected more out of Chapel.
There's no reason to. She's as bendy and flexible as McCoy. Mm-hmm. In the writer's hands, and every character has suffered from this from time to time.
Yeah,
but Chapel is so borderline extra.
Right.
I mean, this is really, I want to say this is, well, no, there was also the one where Uhura took over the Enterprise.
Lorelei Signal.
Yeah, there was Lorelei Signal. Yeah. Okay, so Chapel had a bit of screen time there as a character. She's certainly more central in this one, but you go back to the original series, and there were times where Chapel was, like spot on, super sharp, her own woman, and other times where it was like, hey, we need somebody to do something dumb. Well, we've already got McCoy doing something dumb in the third act, so let's bring in Nurse Chapel. So, I mean, this was kind of that. Yeah, like the idea that she would, try the potion. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the idea that she is not immediately court-martialed after this, or something bad happening after this is kind of a stunning one. Although we haven't seen next week's cartoon, so maybe that's it.
There's more to come.
Maybe so.
I think we have to address that Mudd absolutely spells out that the love potion is between a man and a woman.
Yeah.
Make no mistake. This forms friendships.
Right.
If you are of the same sex.
Yeah, not ready for homosexuality at all at this point.
No.
Which, in fairness, I mean, how old were we when Soap came on? Was it 76 or 77?
Around there, yeah.
That's the first time I remember homosexuality being addressed where it wasn't just somebody prancing around on the screen, right? The point being, I mean, try pulling, homosexuality on a 2014 cartoon, let alone one in 1974.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. They are absolutely 100% clear. Although, kids, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids, they're probably like, really? It would just make you friends?
Yeah.
There has to have been a couple of guys going, wait a minute now. How is that? Why is...
Yeah.
The other thing that's kind of weird. So we're not going to be cool with, okay, so, relations are between a man and a woman, according to, Harcourt Fenton Mudd, when you pop one of these crystals or whatever. Cross species, though, or interspecies, totally fine. Mm-hmm. That's not, so Catwoman starts putting the moves on Scotty, and he wasn't like, hey, hold on a second, Lassie, which is weird because that's a name for a dog and you're a cat, but I think you know what I mean. I did have another question, and this may be going a little too far, maybe a little too deep, and maybe saying a little too much about me. Is Mresh hypoallergenic?
Oh, yeah.
And
she must be, because I've got a whole allergic thing to cats. So that would be very tough if you're in a starship for 5 years.
Well, that is the weird thing. I was actually wondering about that. Like when she comes to apply to be, in Starfleet, does anybody go, all right, we're really going to have to screen whatever ship you're on pretty hard?
Right.
Or does Bones just have one of his magic hypos?
And doesn't even ask you if you want it. He's just like, here you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is that? Don't worry.
Don't worry about it. Or give it to her every 10 minutes, I guess. I don't know. So Scotty ends up with cat scratch fever. But I'm not thinking the Nugent one. I'm doing the Stevie Wonder song, the theme to Spike Lee's movie Jungle Fever, except cat scratch fever, because they're in love.
Wow. Wow.
For like an hour, maybe. I don't know.
It's very good. I will say this, that the rock creatures here are pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Something very hard to carry off with practical effects.
Would be.
Yeah, I mean, we already saw the Excalibur in the Savage Curtain, and how well that turned out.
I already don't remember what that was, so I'm guessing it wasn't good.
If I say Lincoln meets Surak.
No. I remember the Savage Curtain. I don't remember what the Excalibur was. Oh, I do now. It's sort of like the rock creature. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
He was exactly like a rock creature.
Yeah. I was actually so I'm liking the creatures in the animation, and maybe the reason that we don't like the characters in the animation, but we like the creatures in the animation is because we know what the characters look like. Yeah. But the creatures can be imaginary. That hill of rock, when I saw it, I was like, hey, that looks kind of like a lizard. Mm-hmm. And then when it opened its eyes, I was like, well done, Filmation, which is not something you'll hear me say often. Well done indeed, Filmation. I'm starting to like the creatures a lot more.
Yeah, well, and it just even with the human characters, a good effect like the 0G in the previous episode, something that you couldn't really do on the original series. But we got to address the idea that the Enterprise has some sort of gravity plating or gravity field, and that's what keeps them down. But you turn it off, and you got a problem.
Yeah. You want to talk about one of the tells that carried over from the original series to the animated series?
Sure thing.
If Spock is smiling, there's trouble.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there was already trouble before Spock smiled, but that's always going to be a key. I mean, if Spock is smiling, things are not going well.
Right.
Even if it looks like they are. It's kind of curious to me, the whole thing where, so they land on the planet, right? Mm-hmm. Or teleport down to the planet, and it's uneven footing, and Jim catches Spock, and Spock's like, oh, it's so good to have a friend like you. And Kirk's like, weird, I feel the same way. Okay, well, it's actually not weird for Kirk to feel that way, but maybe he's feeling it especially right then, and so it's weird that it's happening to both of them at the same time. We've seen Spock accidentally reveal his feelings for Kirk before, and we're still a few years from I have been and always shall be your friend. We're a long way from him being able to openly say, dude, you're my bud.
Yeah.
I am thinking, though, of times like him breaking into a run when he thinks that Kirk's been killed by the Horda and Devil in the Dark.
Yeah.
Or the excited exclamation when he finds out at the end of mock time that Kirk is not dead. And by the way, that was 2 episodes that I named right
Good
there.
job.
Yeah,
very good job, Ken. You get a gold star for this week.
It kind of makes you wonder if the potion is making people fall in love, if it's making people feel differently, or if it's more like a in vino veritas kind of thing. Is it creating emotions, or just, letting people express their emotions, or letting down the guard a bit?
Well, I mean, it seems like it's a little bit of both, because Spock is revealing his friendship with Kirk that we know is already there. Mm-hmm. We only know that the chapel thing is a one-way street.
We've only known that to this point, yes.
Yeah.
Right. But, I mean, we also know, though, that McCoy will flirt with anything.
Yes, I loved that.
Given like a minute, and it was actually great. That was very much a McCoy kind of thing. Get McCoy just a little bit drunk.
Yeah,
I didn't mention it in the recap, but he's like, "Yeah, I saved Captain Kirk, I saved Spock, I saved Uhura, I've saved everybody. If the Enterprise had a heart, I'd save it. Let's talk about your heart, baby." All he left off was the baby. Most of that was actually a quote, but yeah, he didn't say baby. But she's right there because love is in the air, as we say. Yeah.
I thought that that was handled. Of the things that I did like in this episode, I thought that was handled very well. The moment with Kirk and Spock, because it does inform what has come before and what is yet to come in Star Trek. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I liked was that after they realize what's going on with Spock, sort of treating him with kid gloves. I thought that was really nice. Kirk just being like, okay, he's stronger than us,
right?
He's smarter than us.
Right.
If he's a little off, we need to be careful here. It's like, don't get too close to the angry drunk who has violent tendencies.
Right. Because here's the thing, Spock is not doing anything that they're going to do that they're not going to do anyway. Mm-hmm. He's like, we have to go after Chapel. Well, of course they have to go after Chapel.
Right.
And, they need somebody who's good in a fight. Well, Spock's very good in a fight.
Yeah.
He is not going to be afraid. And, Bones is absolutely right from a medical standpoint. Spock's a little loopy right now. Maybe we don't want to send him. And Kirk's like, yeah, try to stop him.
Yeah, right. Right.
It really is kind of interesting. Now, of course, when they get down to the planet and then they start getting a little testy with each other, that was kind of weird and unexpected because Spock's love for Chapel hasn't worn off at all. So they shouldn't be feeling the antipathy effects yet.
Yeah.
But, I mean, maybe it's just, the whole weirdness of, weird. Also, I love the fact that Kirk was somehow able to turn the 2 crystals that Mudd gave him to like 9.
He's a very good captain like that.
Yeah, he is, and also it has contraindications for the lizard rock creatures because they just went straight at it, and not in a sexy fun time kind of way,
right?
More like in a fighting kind of way.
Can we wrap this up by saying something on our discussion here about what you brought up earlier, Ken, which is that you talked about going back to the well and just sort of pointing, hey, look, we're back on the shore leave planet. Hey, look, we're back with Mudd. Mm-hmm. And the thing that is interesting about the animated series to me is that, yes, we're referencing these things from previous episodes, but it's not happening in the way that you or I would want, I think. Like I pointed out, the things that I liked in this particular episode are the character reveals, the character indications that pick up a thread from before and then maybe launch us into what we'll get to, several episodes, several movies down the road. But I think what you and I always were harping on in TOS was consequence. Nothing from one episode to another has any impact on what happens to the people in another episode. So here we are again with references and direct sequels to the original series, but there's nothing really that pushes the story along. It's just like, well, we're there because we were here before.
I would definitely agree with that as far as Once Upon a Planet. I might disagree a tiny bit with Mudd's passion. I'm not a huge fan of Mudd as a character. I think Mudd's Women was actually a fantastic episode.
Highly underrated. I'll agree with you there, yeah.
And I think Mudd was a highly overrated episode.
Totally
as far
agree.
as a lot of people are concerned. But or as far as I'm concerned, not as far as a lot of people. Other people love it as much as they love it. Me, not so much.
Yeah.
I love the fact that we actually find out what he's been up to. And it's not like, how did you get off that robot planet? Oh, I stole a ship. Okay, that should be plenty. And for a lot of cartoons, that would be plenty. But he's like, well, I stole a ship, and I went over here, and I swindled these guys, and then I got this thing over here. I mean, he's been working his angles, and I like the fact that we can follow his story. I mean, he is still Mudd,
Yeah.
He's not just a drawing of mud, which may sound kind of weird, but actually I did like sort of, filling in that bit. That said, he's still a useless character, and there's still a lot of dumb stuff that happens in this episode, but I felt more that way about the Shore Leave planet because, it was just, it was more situational to me, less character driven. Even if you don't like Mud's character, they did his character, and they did they did that part fairly well. Whether that's worth doing again is a whole other question.
Let's talk about lessons here. What did we pick up in Mud's passion?
Swindling is wrong. Well,
yes,
but in the 23rd century, it's cool because they're just gonna you're gonna put you in rehab, and you'll say okay, and then you get to go back out and swindle some more. So
Yeah. Even if you confess to all your other crimes.
There is one other thing that's kind of goofy. So he bought something that he is peddling as something that he's convinced that it's not, but it turns out it actually is.
Right.
So he meets a guy, and the guy's like, I got these love crystals.
Yeah.
And Mud doesn't believe that they actually work, but he goes ahead and buys them and then sells them as love crystals anyway. Well, he could have cut out the middleman. If that's all he was going to do, he could have cut out the middleman, just cut some crystals and said, these are love crystals.
Right.
That part was kind of, although you do get sort of the moment like, oh, they work, which is cute, which is cute for a cartoon, I guess.
Yeah.
What about you? What about you?
Well, Ken, you can't buy love. You just can't, not even in the form of a crystal.
You can rent it for a couple of hours, though.
You can. That's a little different.
Is that a lesson?
That'll be a totally different animated episode that has never been or never will be produced.
There's always time. I hear there are people out there making their own live action Star Treks.
Yes,
you and me. We could make our own cartoons.
No, dude, there are continuing animated episodes of Star Trek made by fans.
I was hoping that was our idea. Never mind then. Go ahead.
For a link coming later. As we've seen in Star Trek before, you kind of have to control your emotions or else you never get anything done. And the old adage of being careful what you wish for. Also, please, kids, don't do drugs. But I will say something that I was really glad that in your recap used the words steak oil and flim flam, because all of this kind of appealed to my skeptical nature. And it's kind of interesting to me because kids may get it. If you're that 10-year-old watching this, you go, wait, here's this sleazy salesman with a fake product, although it actually works, although it has a big downside. And a kid gets that. Like, clearly this guy is a criminal. Clearly he is up to no good. But then we also grow up into adults who just as easily can turn off our critical thinking about false claims, which is what Nurse Chapel does. So I'm still a little disappointed in Chapel there. But I thought there were a lot of interesting threads in this episode.
I would actually say there's more of that with the miners than there is with Chapel. Chapel is willing to try it because, what does she have to lose? He's handing them to her for free. Now, it turns out, of course, it's a giant scam, and it's a giant scam that actually endangered the Enterprise.
Right.
But, she didn't like put anything out there. Kirk and Spock show up on to the Miners of Motherlode. That's my tour, by the way. Tour shirt coming soon.
Can't wait.
They show up to the Miners of Motherlode, and they're like, this guy's a swindler. And Mud says, oh, that's really interesting. People who have no authority here. And the miner's like, yeah, you got no authority here, so stay out of it. You were saying swindler?
Right.
I mean, they're sort of worse, I think, than Chapel. Although, again, I'm willing to cut the Chapel character slack in this episode, honestly, because Chapel has no character. I mean, she is a recurring actress. She is a recurring piece of scenery that we see over and over again. Sometimes that character gets to do amazing things, and sometimes that character is no smarter than a fern. Yeah. And so I know you're disappointed because you want more for Nurse Chapel. I wanted more for Nurse Chapel all the way through the series, and really past a mock time. It doesn't feel like we get a lot out of that character, unfortunately. Great actress, love her.
Yeah.
No letters. Actually, letters. You know what? Let's call for letters. Not about the Nurse Chapel controversy, please. And I'm going to go ahead and call it a controversy so that hopefully we can tamp it down.
Chapelgate. Well, this will be our Chapelgate.
Chapelgate. I like that. That actually sounds like a British detective series somehow. Anyway,
Yeah.
if you would like to contact us, there are 1.5 million ways to do it. And by 1.5 million, I mean like 6. Facebook, Skype, and Twitter, the handle is Mission Log Pod at all of those places. You can call us 323-522-5641. That number again, 323-522-5641. You can email us, missionlog@roddenberry.com. That's 5. I said there were 6. So if you see either of us, tap us on the shoulder and whisper in our ears. Remember, we may use your comments from any of those places in an upcoming episode of Mission Log.
Ken, as always, there's more to come on Mission Log. Next week, 2 more animated episodes. It's the Territon Incident and the Time Trap.
Music for Mission Log provided by Big Organ Trio. Find their self-titled album on iTunes. Additional music provided by Warp 11. Online at warp11.com. And from the album Messages by Key Theory. Free to download at kitheory.com. And now the saddest part of every 7 to 12-year-old's week, when Saturday morning cartoons give way to televised bowling. And transmission.